And let's get started with the sharing. Here we go. Okay, and then right, so we are here to talk about email marketing specifically for really small businesses, because it's a different thing really compared to the very large businesses. And I found that a lot of the advice online is either for the bigger businesses with a team and a big budget, or it's for people that are some years down the line and are doing really quite complex things with their email marketing, and it's quite hard sometimes to just get started, really. So that's what I'm focusing on, is the really getting started if you're just a one-person business or a one-person business with a few freelancers, and you're in that sort of situation. So thought it might be a good idea to start with, why even bother doing email marketing in the first place? What are the benefits of doing it? So actually, I will ask you, why do you do email marketing? Why do you want to do email marketing? Why does it appeal to you?
I'll start from my perspective. It seems to be part of the mix of things you have to do these days as part of the wider sort of digital marketing field, if you like. And it's email marketing, social media activity, and providing content that everyone comes back to read seems to be critical for getting digital leads and business. So that's what I'm keen on. We've dabbled in it for a while without really understanding how the whole package fits together. So I'm very keen to learn how I can do it a bit more smartly.
Okay, great. And anyone else?
Yes, for me, the work I get is really from people I used to work with when I worked for a company. But I do think it is important to have something else. And I have tried to do it before and I didn't get anywhere. So I obviously doing something not quite right. Although having said that, I got my ex-boss used to be director for direct marketing like 20 odd years ago, to rehash my pitch that I used for emails, and it was completely different, and he explained to me why, and then it just makes sense. And I think when you just work for yourself, there's no one else to bounce ideas off someone, because you don't always want to go outside and ask, because you might feel not you useless, but it's a bit embarrassment maybe at times. Mm-hmm. So I do use social media, but again, I'm not always consistent with it. So 2019, I've decided this is my third year in business, so I've decided to really go for it and try to progress more. And I've just actually launched a new networking group for my village, because I live in Kent, by the way, and we've got quite a lot of businesses in Kent, the village where I live, and surrounding villages, but there's nothing. I have to drive 30 to 45 minutes to any networking groups. So I still go to those, but selfishly, I created this networking group. So it was local, but also to help businesses within the village and surroundings, and also to expose my company a bit more. So I think, to me, I know that email marketing and the social media, they're just important things to do. But like everything else, when you have to do everything yourself, it's sometimes you think, well, what I need to do now is more important, and this has to wait. And often, I hate to say it, email marketing, you think, well, I know I've got to do it, but at the moment, I've got other things that are more pressing.
Sure. Okay. Excuse me. So I wasn't going to put this one in because I think a lot of people are aware of this, but if you're not, it's really important. And somebody mentioned it to me the other week. There are some people who just start out their own little business from home, and they don't realise that you really shouldn't send emails in bulk from your own personal or even your own business email address, partly because it just takes forever and it's really boring, but also because you can get flagged up as a spammer So if you're sending bulk emails or the same email to a lot of people, or the same email to really a few people even sometimes, you've got to get yourself an email marketing system, because you could really cause yourself some problems otherwise. I think probably most people are aware of that, but I wanted to make sure. One key thing that reason for doing email marketing is, well, a lot of people say, well, I'm using social media, why do I need email marketing? And one big reason is that you are in control, because if you build effectively build your database on Facebook, and then they close your page or they shut down your group, or what I hear at the moment is people build up an Instagram following, and then somebody hacks their Instagram account and they can't get into it. It's not your platform. You can't control it completely. So you need something that is yours. And you might say, well, what if my email service shuts me down, or closes down, or folds, or whatever? You can just export your list and upload it to another one. So it's your list. You can do really, within the law, obviously, you can do what you want with it, providing you back up. And that's an important thing, is a lot of people don't back up their mailing lists. And you really, mine slipped, I've got to admit, just lately, but I used to, until recently, back my mailing list up every single week, just in case anything went horribly wrong. I would have a file that I could upload to a different service. So control is a big reason for using it. Another one is that, if you get some hits on your website, people go to your website, have a look around, and then never come back. Because I do it all the time. I go look at a website, think, oh, that's interesting, good content. And then I forget where I saw that. I didn't bookmark it. I forgot who it was. I never go back. So if you've managed to capture their email address, you can stay in touch with them. And that's a really important thing. Another thing that people overlook is it gives you tons of stats. So if you've got an email list, you can see who opened your email, who didn't open your email. You can work out which subject lines work best. I've had an autoresponder, so I've had 10 emails going out, one welcome email when they join the list, and then a content email with some useful information every 2 days for 10 emails. And I can see that just about everybody opens the welcome email because it's got a free gift in it. And then the open rate drops off towards about day 6, and then it picks up at the end. And I can look at that and I can think, right, well, what is it about day 6 and 7 that people are just not really engaging with? And I can tweak the subject lines, and I can tweak the content. And that's incredibly useful to have, because you can make your email marketing more effective, but it also gives you a clue as to what your audience are interested in as well. You can do things like, you can say, give me a segment of people that haven't opened my emails in 6 months, and then you can delete them if you want to. Then you're not paying for those people if you're at the point where you've got a paid account. Or you can send those people an email to kind of re-engage them and try and get them more interested in what you're doing. So those statistics are incredibly powerful, both for your email marketing and for what you do in general. And as I said, you can personalize the emails you send. So you can send, personalize, obviously you can put Dear Helen at the top rather than Dear, comma, and then leave it blank. I don't think people are quite so impressed with that these days. But you can make segments from your list. So if you notice people that are opening particular emails, you can take a segment and say, those people that opened that email on that subject, I want to send them another email on that subject, and I just want to send it to those people. So it doesn't have to be one email blasted out to the entire list anymore. You can control what you send quite well, and you only need a fairly basic system to do that. You don't need a particularly expensive one with all the automation going on that you can get as well. So there's a lot of potential there, really. I think people sometimes overlook, because social media is kind of more is newer and shinier. Hang on, I've got a chat here. Let's have a look. Oh, Marie, kicked out, can't see the slides, but I can see you. Okay. Yeah, log out, log back in. You read my mind. That's great. Okay, so let me just close that. So for those people who say, well, email's dead, isn't it? Everybody's using social media and messaging and every other new tool instead. I would say, how many times a day do you check your email? So have a think. How many times a day do you check your email? I mean, for me, it's far too many. It's really not healthy. Now it's on my smartphone, and I think, you'll get a few people that don't, but for most of us, email is still the main way that people communicate with us. It's like, oh, I don't know, send me an email, I'll get back to you. We do check our email.
I think that's a good point as well. That people tend to reply to emails, don't they? I think sometimes with social media stuff, you kind of see it, and there's so much noise out there, it can wash over you a bit. But I think certainly the way I work, if I see an email, I'll definitely read it, and chances are I'll probably respond as well. I think it seems like a more it's something that you're gonna act on, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I think also with social media, I mean, I'm not knocking social media because I think it's a fantastic thing, but it doesn't do everything. It's not going to solve all your problems. And I think with social media, often you don't even have the reach, so people don't even see it. They physically can't see it if, say, Facebook hasn't chosen to show it to them. And I mean, I know email's not perfect because you can have spam filters and all that sort of stuff in the way, but I think to say email is dead is not true. I think we use email in a different way. So maybe 10, 15 years ago, you'd get an email and it'd be like, oh, wow, an email, exciting, I'll open it. Whereas now you get an absolute shed load of emails. And what you do is you scan the subject line to see if it's worth opening. So the key, the point isn't nobody opens emails. The point is that we are very selective about what we open. So you need to be very careful about producing an email and a subject line that people want to open and read. So the way we use it is different. It doesn't mean it's dead. And I mean, I was thinking, how many years have I had an email address? And I mean, it's like 20 years, and I've been using it consistently for 20 years. It's a long time, and I think we forget. Some platforms come and go, but email is actually has been around a long time. And I think, eventually I'm sure something will displace it, but I don't think there's any real danger of that happening right now or in the very near future. And I found this stat. It says that this is from the Direct Selling Association. So email marketing's return on investment is £32.28 for every pound spent, and that's in 2018 on the run up to the GDPR panic, where everybody was scaremongering. And I don't know if you remember, about this time last year, everyone was going completely crazy about GDPR, and they were still getting, the return on investment was still very good. Now, I don't think your average little business like us would get a return like that, because that's going to be a bigger business that's got a team of people analysing data to make the campaigns incredibly effective, and with copywriting experts and all that sort of stuff. So that's a quite high thing to aim at, but it just goes to show that the potential is there, and it is still working very well. So it's worth. I think the problem with email marketing really is that it's just it's invented it about 30 years ago. So that's the days of the dinosaurs on the internet. It's so long ago. And I don't know about you, but I found that everything in small business that works tends to be the non-sexy stuff. It's the consistency, it's the having a plan, it's that sort of stuff. And it's the stuff that gets overlooked by people who are trying to sell you something new and exciting and shiny. I think email marketing suffered a bit from that as well. Okay. I'm going to move on to, what's stopping you. And I think we've already touched on this a bit anyway. So, I mean, I just drew this little cartoon because one thing that stops a lot of people is they feel uncomfortable selling stuff on email. And that's a big thing for people, and I'll touch on that. But what's stopping you? Give me some ideas of what's stopping you.
I think, funnily enough, actually, to be honest, one of the reasons that I wanted to take part in the workshop today was the I hate to say it, GDPR thing, because I don't have a database of email people that I can send out emails to. The reason I want to do more emailing is I've done a lot of B2C stuff, and social media is, for people who have not met before, hi, I make animations, I make little videos. So obviously, because they're little animations, they work really nicely on social media. So they've kind of sold themselves. But what I'm keen to do is do more B2B work. And I think for that, the social media isn't as, it's part of the mix, but it isn't as important. And I think emailing will be more important as I try and get more B2B clients up and running. And so what I'm worried about to start with is actually getting those email addresses. How do I do it so it's above board? Mm-hmm. How do I start building up that database? That's kind of what I'm worried about at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I've got a section on that coming up. I knew that would be a big one.
Probably similar for me. I'm less worried about the GDPR aspect, but more daunted by, where do you start? How do you start to build your list? What am I going to say to people when they've given me their email address? Creating regular, interesting content is a struggle for me, whether it's email marketing or social media content. So just hints and tips on planning, I suppose, as much as anything, and the tools that can help me get my head around all of this stuff would be one of my concerns. One of the reasons I'm not doing it properly yet.
Okay, great. Okay, do we have anybody that, we've also had, I think it was Marie said you've not really find it difficult to find the time to do it consistently, and that's another big one as well. Is there anybody here who just feels a bit uncomfortable about selling stuff in an email at all? It seems to be quite, no, that's fine. Okay, no worries. I'll skip over that one a little bit then. Okay, right, so things that can stop you, and I did a bit of an unscientific survey of people I know to say what's stopping you. So yeah, we've got the things that you've just said. Tools, what to use, how to use it, what you can do with it is one that people are concerned about. Content, what to send, how often, and how salesy to be. Not wanting to bug people, so feeling a bit spammy, a bit awkward about that. Not having the time to do it. Not seeing the value in it, so although probably not seeing enough value in it to do it consistently and to make it a priority is more accurate there. So people aren't saying I don't see any value in it at all. Not heard this one so much, not wanting to invest money in it. It is really quite cheap to get started, so that isn't really a major problem. But occasionally, where I see that one is when people kind of automatically go to the free services because they don't want to spend any money at all because they don't really see the value in it yet. That's not a huge thing, but it happens. And not wanting to get into trouble, usually with GDPR. So I've got some of those. I'll focus in more on the ones you were just mentioning, but I have a few slides on all of those that I can go through. I'm going to whiz past tools. Does anybody want to know a bit about tools? Because that didn't come up too much.
A brief overview,
okay.
Not a detailed one, but some ideas might be good.
Yeah, sure. Have you all chosen an email marketing tool at this point?
I've used MailChimp in a kind of previous business guise. I've not used it for DBM, but I suppose it's the one that a lot of people just leap onto. So I've had a crack at MailChimp before.
Okay.
We have a CRM system from RSS that has the email marketing capability, but I'm also right now thinking that perhaps MailChimp might be the easier way to get properly started in this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll come back to the choice of tool in a minute. What I'll give is just my tips on how to choose. I would say there are tons of tools out there. Some of them are, there's three I know that are free to start with. MailChimp is the well-known one. You've also got MailerLite, which has a free beginner. I think it's maybe 1,000. You can have 1,000 names before you start paying, something like that. Zoho Campaigns is also free. I've not used that one. I've heard it's reasonably basic, but often basic is good enough to get you started. So MailChimp isn't the only free one, I'll say. But the important thing is just decide what you want to achieve. I think the temptation now is because you've got all these software companies saying it'll do everything, including the washing up. you tend to go for the biggest one that does the most and get completely overwhelmed and only use a fraction of the capability that it has. So I would say decide before you're choosing any software, decide what you want it to do and then pick the tool to fit that, rather than going shopping for software first and getting mind boggled by what it all does. And I would just pick a tool that fits what you want to do, that does what you want, and then gives you a little bit of room for growth as well. It's a bit of a pain to move on, but you can't really anticipate your needs now, what your needs are going to be 3 years down the line right now. And you're better to pick one that you can get along with, that isn't too difficult to use, and that you will use, than one that's just way too big and too complex. So I said, pick one you can get along with. I mean, I know there is a personal thing going on as well. Some people find some interfaces easier to use than others. I do use MailChimp because so many people use it. I need to know it, and I can use it, and I can set things up with MailChimp. But I just don't find it that intuitive, and some people don't. And if that's the case, and that the fact that every time you go in, you're trying to find your way around the thing and it's just taking time and mental effort that you don't have. If you're finding that, it's worth trying a different one, because you may pick another one up and just find it really easy to use, and you're away, and it's no longer as daunting to get those emails sent. And I thought it might be a useful idea to just put down the basic features that they have, so you know what they can do. So the basic features I think you would need, anyone would need to get started, would be, you obviously need the ability to create a list and send emails to it, of course, and the ability for people to opt into your list and exchange that for an offer of some kind, often like your free PDF or your e-course or discount code or something like that. You need the ability to organise subscribers on your lists, and that tends to be tagging or segments. So you can do what I said in the beginning. You can say, okay, show me those people who haven't opened my most recent email. Show me those people who haven't opened an email in 6 months, that kind of thing. And you can send emails to those people, or you can perform actions on those people. You need the ability to look up your stats. So to, like I said, you need to know how many people have opened this, and how well that subject line performed, and all that kind of thing. But they mostly have that anyway. I would say, from what you folks have been saying, things like maybe pop-up opt-ins, landing pages, automation, workflows, all that sort of stuff. A lot of the email services now do, but that's probably not something that you're going to be too concerned about at this stage. Because if you're at the point where you're not sending emails consistently, you don't want to be automating anything. So when I say automation, I mean you put a link in and say, if they click on this, then send them that. If they click on that, then add them to a different list. That's kind of a step beyond, and that can come later on. So I would look for some, and I would say just about every service you look at will have that top 4 as a minimum. Are we okay to move on to content? Because I know that came up as we were talking. Oh, hang on, I've got a chat message. Okay. Right. Got a question there. I'll answer that in just a sec, Diana. Right. So yeah, the content. This is a sticking point because people just don't know what to send, and I think you can get really hung up on, I've got to send loads of really amazing content from the beginning, and it just stops you in your tracks. It's just a bit overwhelming. And I think what I would do is I would just set something simple up. So have a simple opt-in. Get some people on your list, and then choose an interval that you can stick to. So if you feel you can send an email, a good email, every week, then great, do that. If you feel you can only send a good, useful, valuable email every 2 weeks, do that. And so aim for consistency and quality and a frequency that you can stick to, and then think, right, what can I give them in that? What would they like to know? And would your readers like to links to your blog posts? And if you're blogging regularly, your mailing doesn't need to be a lot more than just a 2-line or a 1-sentence introduction to a blog post and a link. It doesn't have to be difficult. You can do something very simple. So if that's going to work for you and that's going to be valuable for them, just start by doing that and get yourself into the habit of sending something out consistently that's going to be of value. And then once you've sent a few emails, you've then got some statistics you can look at, and you can see, how well is it working, who's opening what, how many. Do you get a better response with some subject lines than other subject lines? And then you've got some data to go on. And I think the difficult thing is if you're not emailing consistently or emailing at all, you've got no data to go on, really. And that's what kind of trips you up. So get the ball moving and then tweak and adjust from then on. So yeah, start small and achievable. And aim for good quality, good and consistency. Watch your stats, and then just grow from there. I think there's this expectation that you need to start big and bold and frequently, and there is no need to do that. You can keep it nice and simple. Does that help? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I tried to find a professional way of putting this, but in the end I just think a modest campaign done well is better than a half-assed over-ambitious one. Keep it controllable, keep it something that you can do and you can do well and you can do consistently, and that's going to help. And in terms of planning, the planning for that would be incredibly simple. I mean, if you decide your frequency, you just really need a sheet of A4 and say, just brainstorm some topics that you could write about. It doesn't have to be written. I mean, you can get some fantastic templates now, and I just had a question about this. You can get, MailChimp, and I just said I didn't particularly like it, but MailChimp does have some really nice templates. So you don't have to be a graphic designer to produce a really nice looking email. And you just kind of drop your content in. And if you're in a visual visual industry, that may be what your audience wants to see. Maybe they do want to see some beautiful photos. Maybe they don't want the traditional, long article, and maybe they haven't got the time or the inclination to read that. So this is very similar to social media. It's kind of matching what you send to what your audience wants. And I think how important design is going to depend on your audience. So if you've got a very and if perhaps designers, photographers, people with a very sort of visual audience may need to put a bit more effort into making the emails look good than somebody who is for example, we've got Rachel, who, you want them to look nice, but Rachel, you're primarily attracting people who are interested in writing, so perhaps the visuals wouldn't be quite so important for someone whose line of work is writing than it would be for someone who is more of a design based. But you've got to test it. The only way is to test it.
The newsletters that I sign up to don't have any design at all. They're just plain text, really, and those are the things that I like because I just like reading. Yeah,
absolutely. And if you're more of a words person than an images person, then you might get. I've seen blog posts that just irritate me. Wouldn't say I'm particularly either, really. I kind of hover between the two. But yeah, I think sometimes if you're more of a words based person, a load of images could just irritate you because they just get in the way, So it's very much down to who you're trying to attract and who you're trying to get to respond to you. So yeah, you're unusual then, Rachel. If you're sorry, I'm trying to find the chat here. Yeah, I think I've just answered that one, Diana. Yeah. If you've got some. Okay, hang on. Sorry. If you've got some blog posts already in the can, if you like, on your blog that are being read, aren't being read, you can definitely recycle them and put them in your newsletter. And what I've done, a nice idea that I've done before, is I've had some blog posts on a blog that was relatively new, so not that many people actually read it in the early days, and I thought, well, they're sitting there not doing anything and they're quite useful, so I turned them into a sequence. So I had a welcome email at the beginning, and then day 2 I did a little bit of text, and then I put a link saying, if you want to know more about this, I've got a blog post on it, and sent them through to my blog post. So you can, yeah, definitely, reuse content that you've already created in your mailing list, because not everybody will have read your blog, and sometimes I don't know about anybody else, but I go back and reread blogs because I need a reminder of what I read 3 months ago because I've not implemented it. So I think a bit of repetition is not a problem, because we've just got so much information coming at us that it's not a bad idea to see it a second time. And I've just lost my Zoom with my PowerPoint presentation. So hang on, let me just get you back so I can see what I'm doing. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. Mike, can you still see my PowerPoint, folks? Yeah. No. Right. Okay. Right. Let's try that again. How about now? You see it now? No. Okay. Maybe I've stopped sharing by accident. Okay, share. That's it. Right. That's it. Yeah. It's back. Okay. Okie dokie. We're up to content. Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, small and achievable. Just do what you can do and focus on consistency and quality. And if you need to recycle some content, then that's great. And just see how you go. Get some stats, get some reactions, see what people like, and then build on that. Get some information behind you. Okay, right. We didn't have many people say they're worried about bugging people. I think what I'll just briefly say about that is you're not spamming people. If you've got them to opt in the way that you should have got them to opt in, with the legal way, with permission, and nobody's going to go buy an email list and start blasting. They've put their hands up and they said, I want to hear from you. So there's no reason to worry about bugging people. And if you initially start off sending emails once a week, even once every 2 weeks, something like that, you can increase the frequency until you watch your stats and see people aren't responding, and then you can drop it down. So you're not working blind. You can actually watch your statistics and just see how people respond over time and tweak what you send to meet what they respond to. And I think it's always a value exchange. I think people are happy to hear from you if they're getting value from you, and I think we sometimes undervalue what we do and what we send out. And as I've been saying all the way through, it's no longer about just blasting out the same email to everybody. You can be a lot more intelligent with it now. You can send emails out to people who've shown an interest in something in particular. Or you can re-engage people that haven't been opening your emails if you want to. It's not a blunt tool like it used to be. So I'll just pause there. Any questions about anything? I've went through that quite quickly because that didn't seem to be a major issue for most people. So, okay. On the value thing, I can totally understand that you've got so much to do, and then the email marketing slips to the bottom of the list. It's so easily done. But if you can get it going consistently, it can be incredibly effective. And I think sometimes you need to set yourself a goal of saying, right, I'm going to do this consistently for 3 months or whatever the time period you choose, and kind of convince yourself that it has value. Because the thing is, what if email marketing made you more money than everything else? You would find the time. You would really find the time to do it. So I think if you give it a fair old go, I mean, it's 3 months, it's not very long, but it's long enough to make you get a sense of what's possible, I think. If you commit to doing it consistently for a period of time and you start to see some results, then it just gets easier to commit to it. I think it's a bit like, starting exercising, isn't it? If you don't see the value initially, it's really hard to motivate yourself. But if you give yourself a few months, you think, well, actually, this is really worth continuing. I'm glad I did it. And as I said, it's as marketing methods go, you can, if you do it well, you can get a really good return on this. It really is very effective. Oh dear, it's GDPR. Are we ready for GDPR? Are we ready to go into this? Right. This is my GDPR klaxon.
It makes a nice change from Brexit anyway, doesn't it? I mean, it could be worse.
Yeah. This is my GDPR klaxon. Because I've gone blurry. What have I gone blurry? That's really strange. I've not done anything. Okay, sorry about that. I am not a GDPR expert at all. This is really from my own research, and I would say if you are really concerned about GDPR, you really do need to speak to an expert, because it is very complex, as I think we all know. But what I'm concerned about is that so many people have. I'm just plugging my webcam back in. That's all right. Yeah, so many people have stopped email marketing completely, or are so scared of doing anything with it, that I just did some research on the situation for very small businesses like we are, and is it such a big deal? Is it such a big problem? Should we be this stressed about it? So I'm just reporting back what I've come up with. I'm not GDPR trained, and I'm not going to give you the full story here. It would take me a long time to do that, and I'm not qualified. So I picked up the pertinent points, I think, that I hope will reassure you and get you moving again if you've got stuck. First of all, I've put that in so that when you get the PowerPoint presentation, you can click on it. There is the Information Commissioner's Office, the ICO. They have tried really quite hard to reassure micro businesses and sole traders that they're not out to get us. The point of GDPR really was to catch the people like Google this week who've got slapped with a massive fine, the people who are taking liberties with data on a really high, on a real scale, and not to catch us out. And I couldn't find the article now, but on the ICO website, I did find around about May last year, it said they aren't out to slap sole traders and small business owners with massive fines. If they did catch you, you're a small business, if you show you have put some effort into this, but you've just come a bit unstuck, they're going to be supportive and they're going to help you rather than give you a huge fine. So it's not as scary as people made it out to be. And a lot of it is really quite common sense and just stuff you would want doing with your own data. So things like only collect the data that you need, only keep it as long as you need it, keep it up to date and secure, and actually keeping it secure is your email marketing services job, really. So if you check their policy, they will be able to help you out with that. And allow people to exercise their rights. So, let them know you've got their data, let them access it if they need to, allow them to unsubscribe or be deleted. I don't think the other two are quite so relevant to us. So it's really just being responsible with data. And if you were email marketing the right way up till now, you will have done most of that, because out of date email address subscribers are of no real value to you anyway. Your email service will keep you should have been keeping your data or their data secure for a long time. And you always you've needed to let people unsubscribe from your mailing list for a long, long time. So none of that is really that new. I think it's just tightened up a little bit. And also you need to know your responsibilities, which if you click on that link when you get the PowerPoint presentation, you'll find your responsibilities on there anyway. The key things that I've noticed for email marketing for sole traders, micro businesses, and these are just my observations really, are that you can no longer offer a free download and then put them on a mailing list without telling them. So what used to be standard is it would be, oh, download my free ebook. Whoops, you're on my mailing list. And you can't do that anymore. So you need to be upfront about that. So either you need to say, join my mailing list and get my free ebook, or when you download my ebook, I will put you on your mailing list, or just make it clear that they're signing up for both. What some people do is they say, download my ebook, and then on the final page of the ebook or on the final page of the download, they then give them a chance to opt into the mailing list. So they're kind of two separate events. But either way you do it, it has to be really upfront what they're going to get. So you can't give them, say you're going to give them one thing for free and then give them something entirely different. which is fine. I mean, it does mean writing an opt-in page is a pain because it's longer, or it does mean you're going to have a two-step thing where they download the free ebook and then you get them to opt into your email address. But I think it's kind of open and honest and transparent, so it's not really a sort of a bad thing. I think what does annoy me is if you look at any of the advice from any of the sort of American online business people, they're not doing that. They're just saying to people, oh, just download my freebie, and they're teaching you, download my freebie, and whoops, you're on my list. And we're, in Europe, you're not allowed to, if you're doing, no, not even if you're in Europe, if you're providing information or services to anybody in Europe, then you can't do that anymore. Has anyone else noticed that you're still being taught by Americans to do this? It's quite frustrating. It annoys me that you probably get sort of complete beginners falling into that and breaking the law and not knowing it. The other thing I've noticed is that I think it's died off a little bit, but certainly when GDPR happened back in May, it was all consent, and every time you signed up for anything, you were ticking these boxes and ticking that box, and can I have your permission to do that? And actually, it's not quite that simple. So there are 6 legal bases by which you can process people's data, and consent is only one of them. And again, link there, which I'll see if I can go through to. I don't know if I've shared that on my screen. Can you see that, the ICO website?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So the link's there, so I won't go through it, but you've got lawful basis for processing, and consent is only one of them. So it says the individual has given clear consent for you to process their personal data. And actually, I mean, probably for us, mostly the rest won't apply apart from legitimate interest. So if somebody has bought something from you, you probably have a legitimate interest to keep them up to date with that product over time. So when people buy stuff from you, you don't necessarily, and then you go on there, you put them on your customer list, you don't necessarily have to have their consent to send them information because of legitimate interest, if you see what I mean. So if you're kind of hung up on the whole consent thing, and a lot of people are, it's worth just reading that page and getting your head around it, because you may find it's not quite as daunting as you think. I mean, it's still something you need to know about, but it's not quite as daunting as sticking tick boxes on absolutely everything all over your website, as some people did. I think the others tend to be less applicable to us, but legitimate, a lot of things I think will fall under legitimate interest and will actually make your life a bit easier. Okay, let's go back. So, I mean, is there anything else that's particularly bothering you about GDPR? She says like she's an expert in GDPR. Because I'm happy to go off and have a dig and put it in the Facebook group afterwards if I don't know the answer. No. I think sometimes it's one of those things that you've got a whole load of reasons why you're not email marketing, and it's time and it's effort and you don't know quite what to send, and it's just another thing on the list, isn't it? It's just another irritating thing on the list that can be gotten over if you just spend a little bit of time on it and get past it. But yeah, that ICO website, it's got some really useful stuff on it, right down to I found some templates on there that you can use for your website as well the other day. So they really aren't setting out to trip us up. They are setting out to really help us out. And I think sometimes if you go direct to them, you're going to the horse's mouth rather than some of the scaremongering experts that are trying to get you to buy services off them. Not all, but there were certainly some of those going around last year. And like I said, I'll get that presentation to you. Oh, that's the end. There you go. So we'll just get rid of that and come back. Oh dear, where are you all? I'm trying to fill my screen. Right, okay. Question. Right. So, yeah. Missed a few good ones here, haven't I? Right. So we've got, great tip from Rachel about doing an image of the week. Yeah, I think particularly if you're photographers in particular, get a bit stuck because they think it's got to be text, it's got to be text. And actually, if your customers, they're with you for the images, send them images. If that works for you and that works for them, that's great. And that could be really quite quick and easy to do. So if people agreed in a contract or contact form that they're happy to receive your e-newsletter, then do you still have to send an email to confirm they're happy before adding them to the mail? So that's your double opt-in, I think. So your single opt-in is you type in your email address, hit send, and then bam, you're on the list. The double opt-in is you type in your email, hit send, and then it sends you an email to say, if you really want to be on this mailing list, click this link. Legally, you don't have to do double opt-in. I checked with the GDPR rules. You don't. There was some information going around saying you have to do double opt-in by law, and you don't. I found you get a better quality list if you do double opt-in. It's annoying because you get a certain number of people who don't click the link, and then you kind of have to write them off, really. Just because they've not clicked the link in the email. So that is irritating. But the people who do join really want to hear from you because they've made a point of clicking that link. So I went through a phase of doing single opt-in, and then I switched back to double opt-in. Because having somebody on your list that never opens your emails and isn't really interested is just no good to you. And after a certain point, you're going to end up paying for that person to be on your list. And it's it's just not how it's you want quality on your list, not quantity, really. And I know it's really easy to get sucked into thinking I want as many people on my list as possible, but they're only as good as the sales you make from them, or the engagement you get from them, or the open rate, or whatever you choose to measure it. The numbers of people on your list on its own is not a particularly useful measure. Martin, thoughts on the selling side? Do I know of an ideal template for a launch general campaign for products or service? I don't know of a general template for a campaign. I think it's just going to be different for everybody. I mean, I guess within certain industries you're going to get general rules that apply, but it's very hard to generalize. I think it's like with anything online, it's all about the testing and the knowing your audience, that kind of things. I imagine if you do some Googling on your specific industry or audience that you're looking at, you're going to get some valuable hints and tips to point you in the right direction. But generally, there's a lot of testing that needs to be done, and just see how you go. So Diana, only got a dozen people on my list so far, but good point. Yeah. The other thing about double opt-in, I switched to Aweber a few years ago because I was doing affiliate marketing, and not all of them allow you to do affiliate marketing. And I've been really happy with it, actually. The customer service is fantastic. But one thing I noticed with Aweber is they much prefer you to have a list that has been created using double opt-in than they do one that's been created using single opt-in, because it's a better quality list and they're much less likely to get complaints from spamming or people complaining that you're spamming. So the quality of your list can have an impact if you decide to move to a different service later on. So that's another good reason to do double opt-in. The email service providers, they do like double opt-in because they get a better quality list and they keep a better reputation for it. So I would say go with the double opt-in, unless you know otherwise. Unless you've got a good reason not to, then I would go with the double opt-in. Yep. I think that's it. Any more questions? Any other comments? Or
I think the one thing that I'd be interested to hear people's views on is the actual way that you're going to get people in the first place to actually get them to give you their email address. Because I know just from kind of browsing around, if I'm on a website and after about 5 seconds you get that huge rectangular pop-up that says join our mailing list, and it's all big letters and colourful and everything, I just immediately shut those down because there's something about them that's so in your face it's almost a bit over the top. So sorry, that was my notification there. So yeah, I'd be interested in how you actually, a good way of getting people to sign up in the first place.
I mean, that's just probably the most obvious way, and there are loads of different ways, and it's going to be different for different people. I mean, one thing that's completely overlooked is just ask people. You know, if you're starting with a tiny list, you don't necessarily even have, I mean, it's good to have an opt-in on your website because you might pick up some people that way anyway, just from reading your blog. But one massive missed opportunity I see is that people selling face to face, like at art and craft groups, that sort of art and craft fairs, that sort of thing. It's just ask people face to face, would you like to go on my mailing list? It can be that easy, and people are actually much less inclined to ignore you face to face when you ask them than if you do it on your website. So I know, I mean, God, I was in Go Outdoors not long ago, and they just, would you like to go on our mailing list? It's like, it's quite hard to say no. So, particularly if they know you. So it doesn't have to be an online thing. You could just do it verbally if you want to. And actually, most of them have apps now, so you can actually, if you're out and about, you can add people to your list on your smartphone with an app. You don't have to write down their email and come home and do it, anything like that. So there's that. Something that people are doing are like the content upgrades in blog posts. So you have a good blog post with some useful information, and then people can download a checklist or something in PDF format to go with that. Obviously it has to be done in the GDPR friendly way, but content upgrades, and I think making it as useful for them rather than just kind of slapping people around the head with it, like with the pop-up boxes, can work. I mean, having said, I've not done a pop-up box in quite a while, but a few years ago I did, and it worked. It doubled my opt-in rate. So
yeah, I mean, I wonder if it's, I mean, part of it is obviously a personal thing, and I think maybe it's because it's been done so often, maybe since the time you did it, it's become so kind of over the top, hasn't it? I think where sort of like nearly every other website does it, and I think maybe that's just kind of hampered it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, people, I mean, there were tons of them at the time. It really went crazy. In fact, I think there are less now than there were then, actually. And for a long time, I held back and thought, I hate this. Why am I doing this? But I did it, and it worked. So sometimes it's just worth thinking, well, I'll do it for a few weeks and see what happens. You just don't know. So you can do that. You can put opt-ins. You don't just have to have one opt-in on your site. You can put them all over. So you can have them at the bottom of your blog post. You can have them in the middle of your blog post. You can have them top right-hand corner in your sidebar. You can experiment with them in lots of different places. You can do that. It doesn't work so well now, but because on Twitter, because Twitter's just mad, isn't it? But for a long time on Twitter, well, not for a long time, for a while there, I tested it. I had a free e-course, and I just got into conversations with people on Twitter who were having problems with, I think it was a start to use Twitter e-course about 5 years ago. And I said, well, actually, I've got a free e-course. Do you want it? Oh, yes, please. And there you go. That was, they opted in to that, and that worked quite nicely for a while on Twitter. So I think there isn't kind of one way that works. There'll be different ways that work for you, and it's just a question of testing and trying, and it's partly down to what you're giving them as well, and how well you sell what you're giving them as well. I found people saw more value in a free e-course than they did in a free ebook, but again, times change. E-courses there are a lot more e-courses out there now. I think the value of them has gone down quite a lot. So maybe that wouldn't work as well. So it's all changing so fast. I think you've just got to really experiment and often think quite creatively about, what your people need and how you can give that to them in a way that'll make them happy, really. And GDPR, which is a bit of a pain. Yeah. But anybody else got any really good things they've tried that they've been happy with for opt-ins? I think what's really overrated with small lists is just ask people. Just say, I've got this newsletter. It's got some really useful information in it that you might like. Can I add you? And that can work quite well. Free cheat sheet. That's a trend I've noticed. It used to be a few years ago, big chunky ebooks, but people don't have the time to read them. So something sort of small and actionable seems to work. I had a course teaching people to make online courses, and I had a brainstorming sheet. It was like I've still got it if anybody wants to see it. But it was 3 sides of A4 in a PDF format, and you printed it out, and you allowed you to brainstorm the topic of your online course. And that went down really well. People like that. They found it useful. And because it was a printable, they actually printed it, took it away, kept it, and didn't forget about it on their hard drive. Yeah, that worked quite well. So I think it's just picking what you do and what they want and matching them really closely, and just encouraging people to take that. Is that Marie? Was that a copy of your brainstorming sheet? Was that? Yeah. You can unmute yourself if you want to. Yeah. Okay. I will write that on my list. Yeah, I mean, if anybody else wants it, just let me know, and I can I'm not promoting that course any more, particularly because I think the sort of value of online courses is they've become so popular. I don't think they're of sort of quite so much value as they used to be, but I've still got the content there. So if anybody is interested in that, I've still got that. Okay, anything else I can help you with? Because we're at 11 o'clock, so I'm sort of keen to wrap up. No, all quiet. Oh.
That's been really good, Helen. Thank you. Just to
you're welcome.
Sort of restore my faith in that it is worth doing, and I should just get on with doing something.
Yeah, it's definitely worth sort of saying I'll give it 3. Set yourself a goal, set yourself a target, and just do it to the best of your ability within the time and resources you've got, and see how it goes, and then tweak and test as you go. I think you kind of need to convince yourself, I think, and then once you've convinced yourself, you're then going to be more committed to it. That's an important thing.
I was going to say I'm going to have a go, and I did try at the end of last year. I read something online and said what you need to do if you want so many people to sign up, then you need to at least contact, if you want 10 or 6, you want to contact at least 60 people per day.
Yeah.
Try to get business, and you think, God, that's a lot of people to contact. And I did send a few emails to companies I wanted to go target in certain industry, and I've got to say, no one came back to me. And then I approached my ex-boss, and I showed him the email, and he was to me, it's so long, people just start reading it and they get bored. So it's been streamlined, and it's getting to the point, and it's actually talking, it's actually saying, this is what I can do for you, than me saying, I'm offering to do this. And it's make them realize it's all about them and what I can do for them, and how I can help them to grow their business without thinking about having to do the admin stuff, which is boring.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely about content. So like you said earlier, keep it short, to the point. And also, I always remember direct marketing, he used to say the introduction line is really important. These are the first few lines that are so important, and because if you don't grab their attention, they're not going to carry on reading.
Absolutely. I think it's well worth just brushing up your copywriting skills, because this is a lot of this is just sort of basic, like I'm an expert. If you picked up any book on copywriting, it would brush up your ability to write a good email, wouldn't it? I mean, Rachel's the expert on that one, definitely. But I did that. I mean, a few years ago, I got a couple of books on copywriting, and when you read it, you think, oh yeah, that's just so obvious. Why didn't I think of that? But you don't. It's not your natural way to do that. So it's definitely worth. And I read, I can't think who said it now, but it was one of the direct marketing copywriting experts And they were saying it about printed adverts, but it's similar for anything online as well. The purpose of the first line is to get you to read the second line. The purpose of the second line is to get you to read the third line. The purpose of the third line is to get you to read the fourth line. So, and even more so with the subject line. So if they don't read the subject line, they're not going to open the email. If they don't want, if it doesn't inspire them to open the email, then they're not going to read the email. So copywriting is incredibly important.
And also less is more. And I think I gave too much away in my first email, and rather than get them interested and think, oh, this is intriguing, how can I find out about more? Because I just gave so much away, there was no need for them to come back to me. So definitely it's a bit like a tease, isn't it? You want to tease them to contact you and find out more about what you do.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you want to tease them to click through to your website as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, just something really quickly. I know we're running late. It was just to do with what Diana was saying. Something I remembered about when it came to the actual design of emails and things is that I remember when I tried doing it a couple of years back on MailChimp, I was trying to...
HMRC says. Do you still have a self-assessment tax bill to pay?
That's
Help and support
HMRC.
Available now. View in browser.
You can't get away from it.
I have paid my tax bill, by the way. Yeah, it is in with 6 days to go or whatever. One thing, Diana, just to think about is that the more complicated your design, I found the more it differed between different browsers when people actually came to view it. So you might be working on Chrome as you're designing your lovely email. And then somebody will open it on Firefox or something else, and it'll make an absolute dog's dinner of it. And I think that's one of the reasons why sometimes maybe more like Rachel was saying, more kind of text heavy is a lot safer when it comes to how people view it at their end. Sorry, it just kind of remembered about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think always keep it simple if you can. Yeah. I think the other one, just one more thing, because I know we're over time. Also keep in mind that a lot of people are reading emails on smartphones now. So that's another reason why they don't want a long email, because you're having to scroll forever to get to the bottom. So a lot of the time, people, if you look at it, people are checking up their emails on the bus and on the train and when they're waiting for doctors and stuff like that. So the way we consume emails changed as well. So that's worth keeping an eye on that as well. Okay, I'm going to close. If you have any more questions, just post them in the group. Or I mean, you can just PM me if you want to. But if you're happy to continue this in the Facebook group afterwards. And if you're not a member, just please do join. Tons of useful information in there, and I'll see you around. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Helen. That was great.
Yeah, that's really useful. Thank you, Helen.
Okay, no problem. Bye.
Bye.